The Price of Poverty, A Mother's Story. In a small, forgotten village deep within the African savanna, where the sun beat down relentlessly and the earth was dry and cracked, there lived a woman named Amina. Her story, one of unbearable hardship and the ultimate sacrifice, would one day echo across the land. But in the beginning, Amina was just another face in the crowd, a woman born into a world of poverty so severe, it crushed the soul and drained the spirit. Little did anyone know that her choices, her tragic decisions, would change everything and haunt her forever. Amina's village was called Songa, a place where survival was a daily struggle. Food was scarce, and clean water was a distant dream. Life in Songa was harsh, and the people there knew no respite from the constant hunger gnawing at their stomachs. The village depended on the seasons. Good harvests brought a few months of relative peace, but when the rains didn't come, the famine struck with a vengeance, like a monster that couldn't be escaped. From the time Amina was a child, she understood the meaning of hunger. She watched her mother struggle to feed her and her siblings. She witnessed neighbors who would rather go to sleep than face the ache in their bellies. But hunger was not the only enemy. Poverty made people do things they wouldn't otherwise dream of. It whispered terrible ideas in their ears, urging them to cross lines they had never imagined. Amina had always been strong-willed, determined to rise above her circumstances, but no matter how hard she tried, poverty followed her like a shadow. It was there when she married a local farmer named Musa, and it was there when she became pregnant with their first child. Musa worked the fields tirelessly, hoping to grow enough food to sell at the market, but the soil was unforgiving and the droughts were long. The dream of a better life seemed to slip further and further away. By the time Amina gave birth to her first child, a beautiful baby girl she named Halima, the situation had become dire. They couldn't afford food, let alone medical care for the baby. The village midwife helped with the birth, but as Amina cradled her newborn in her arms, a knot of fear and desperation began to form in her chest. How could she take care of this tiny life when she could barely take care of herself? It was during this time of hopelessness that Amina was approached by a stranger from the city. He wore fine clothes and his words were smooth like silk. He had heard of the village's troubles and, more specifically, of Amina's new baby. The stranger offered her money, more money than Amina had ever seen in her life, in exchange for her child. At first, Amina was horrified. The thought of selling her own baby was unimaginable. But as the days passed and the gnawing hunger became unbearable, she found herself considering the unthinkable. What kind of life could she offer Halima? A life of starvation, of constant struggle. The money the man offered could feed her family for years. She could have more children, couldn't she? Maybe when things were better, when the rains returned, she could be a mother again. Torn between her love for her child and the desperation that clawed at her, Amina made the fateful decision. With tears streaming down her face, she handed Halima over to the stranger, knowing she would never see her daughter again. The money brought temporary relief. For a time, Amina and Musa were able to buy food, clothing, and supplies they had long needed. The whispers in the village were cruel, but Amina hardened herself to the gossip. She told herself that she had done what was necessary, that she had saved her family from starvation. And yet, each night, when the wind howled outside their small hut, she would hear Halima's cries in her dreams. Years passed, and Amina gave birth again, to a boy this time. They named him Kofi. The rains still hadn't come, and the drought continued to ravage the land. The crops failed again and again, and soon, the money they had received for Halima was gone. Desperation returned, like a beast that couldn't be kept away for long. And just